Is the European experiment at risk of coming off the rails? Forgetting about Greece, if we go back to Monet, the European coal community and the rest, can it come off the rails?
It could. I don't think it will. The irony of all this is that the creation of the euro, of the European Union's currency, single currency, was designed to pull Europe together. Now it turns out to be the vulnerability which could fragment Europe if it continues. If Greece leaves or if Greece encounters major problems, and then there is a spread to other countries who say, if the Greeks get a better deal out of this, which they're trying to do, we want to get a better deal in Spain and Portugal and elsewhere. So it could change the balance from the current policies now to much more aggressive policies by the left on their governments to get them to take more dramatic action against the IMF and the Eurogroup.
The core of your work in your book, The Price of Liberty, your work with Goldman Sachs International, is for responsible fiscal policy, whether it's the United States or any other nation. Is Germany leading a responsible fiscal policy?
Germany is really trying to say, look, to Greece and to others, but particularly to Greece now, if you want more money from Europe, and Europe's already given them 280 billion euros. Well, you need to do more things to put your economy onto a track that is going to reduce over a period of time your deficits. And in fact, the last government, the Samaras government, was actually making progress in this direction. It had a lot of unemployment, but the fiscal problems were improving.
And there was that headline last night of Samaras resigning. He's going to move on.
There was, exactly, you know, having championed the wrong thing. But, you know, when we talk about if you want more money, a lot of that money went to Greece straight back to European banks, to French banks, to German banks. French exposure was $78 billion in 2009.
Germany's is even bigger.
Yeah. Well, actually, Germany's was at the time. It was smaller, I think. Anyway.
But now it's bigger.
Now it's bigger. But my question is, looking at Greece, is it a strategic problem or an economic problem?
Well, it's both. The fact is they've had very generous pension plans. They do a lot of things internally which are not consistent with good fiscal policy. But there's a bigger political problem, and that is if you don't give Greece anything and it deteriorates and collapses, that's horrible for the Greek people, horrible for Europe. If you give them too much and it's too generous, then other governments say, why should we do the kind of tough fiscal measures that the Europeans want us to do? And they will start protesting and asking for more liberal terms. So Europe's right caught on the balance here.
So, Ambassador Hormats, has Greece backed Europe into a corner, or could Greece find itself now out on its own?
Greece has backed itself into a corner in a way because now it has such a strong mandate that it's very difficult for them to give in to some of the things that Europeans want. And it's backed Europe into a corner because Europe, particularly the Germans, have made these very clear demands on Europe to come around and do what they've asked them to do, which was taken off the table Tuesday. So they're both in a very difficult negotiating position.
Ambassador, very quickly here, the idea here of an irresponsible Europe, who's ever to blame, how does it set up Putin and Russia? How do they respond to this or react to it over the next 2 or even 5 years?
Well, it's hard for me to imagine that the Russians are not going to try somehow to take advantage of this. I mean, I'm sure there are Russian agents now in Greece. The Samaras, Tsipras saw the Russian ambassador first before any other ambassadors when he took over, when Syriza took over. So the Russians clearly are going to try to do something, but they don't have a lot of money, and there's not much they can do to help the Greeks very much. And the Greeks want to stay in NATO, they want to stay in Europe, they want to be part of the West, and they even want to be part of the Euro. So for them to play the Russian game, particularly because they're trying to court the United States, Tsipras has been talking to Jack Lew on a regular basis, as has his minister. So they're trying to keep up with the U.S.